Good afternoon, Producer Susan. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jersey Joe. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Did you get your lawn mowed over the weekend?
On Friday, when
Fr-
it was the least of the three humid days, I mean, it's 95% humidity out there. It's gross.
Uh, well, yes. Well, it's the middle of July. Today's July the 14th. We're halfway through summer, and let's see. So anyway, let's see. Did we talk after the 4th of July? Yeah, we talked after the 4th of July, right?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so you want to hear what we're going to try to talk about today?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
All right. Well, again, it's news and perspective. It's the situation, Jersey Joe, news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And as usual, I've got a ton of stuff I guarantee you didn't hear on TV. So this week, our quote of the week, once again, is from economist Thomas Sowell on what happens when you subsidize irresponsibility. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. We'll tell you what happened to a 15-year-old kid who was the son of a farmer who opened up a roadside stand in front of his parents' farm up in Wisconsin. We'll tell you what happened to him. We've talked several times about mayoral candidate Zorhan Mamdani
Mhm.
um, in New York City. Well, we're going to bring you a clip of him lying about the size of the tax increase he has proposed. He has proposed to impose on the wealthiest residents of the city, and the interviewer, the woman interviewed to her credit, catches him in the lie, and then he keeps trying to lie about it, and we'll tell you why it's a lie. Um, what do you think would happen? Here's another one. What do you think would happen if you gave 1,800 teenagers guns and gave them access to unlimited ammunition and left them alone for 5 days? What do you think would happen?
Guess it depends on the teenagers.
That's exactly right. So we're going to tell you what happened when 1,800 teenagers got together in a small town in Michigan, and each of them had at least one gun, if not multiple guns, and they all had access to ammunition. We'll play a clip of a Biden immigration official being questioned about a massive fraud that was uncovered in a special immigration program the Biden administration had set up. We all know John Stossel, right?
Yep.
Well, we'll play a clip of John Stossel with a talking to a professor, actually a high school teacher, about who's also a doc has a doctorate about a proposal that black students shouldn't be required to learn and use proper English, and why he thinks that's terribly destructive, and if anything, maybe insulting. Um, we'll tell you about the massive. Now, we've all heard about artificial intelligence, right? And people are
Yep.
setting up
Yep.
these AI server farms.
Yeah.
Incredible what these AI server farms require in terms of electricity. You heard where Microsoft wants to reactivate one of the Three Mile Island nuclear plants in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, Microsoft is negotiating with, I think it's Pennsylvania Power and Light, to reactivate one of the nuclear reactors on Three Mile Island. And it's the only thing it would provide power for is their proposed AI server farm.
Wow.
And our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from a place called, you've probably never been here, Allentown, Pennsylvania, where
A
the
few times. A
where
few
the aggressor in a road rage incident makes the mistake of bringing a baseball bat to a gunfight with the driver of the other car he was harassing. How do you think that one worked out?
Yeah, I'm thinking not too good for the baseball.
All right, not right. So, here's our quote of the week from economist Thomas Sowell. But before I do that, I want to take you back to something President Reagan said probably before you were born. Reagan said, if you want less of something, tax it. And if you want more of something, subsidize it. And that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
So here's what Thomas Sowell said, and this was up fairly recently. He said, you cannot subsidize irresponsibility and expect people to become more responsible.
Yep.
Now think about that for a minute. If you if you say, hey, the more children you have out of wedlock, the more money we'll give you.
Hmm.
I mean, why would you stop having kids out of wedlock?
Exactly.
Uh, if you keep losing your job and you keep getting unemployment and Section 8 housing and food stamps, why would you worry about being responsible and try to keep a job if every
Exactly.
time you become unemployed? If every time you have a drug overdose, you got Narcan and you get for treatment.
Hmm.
So again, you cannot subsidize irresponsibility and expect people to become more responsible. And
Yeah.
that's I think we're seeing today. People, Remember we talked maybe 2 years ago about the Ben Franklin quote about that we should not make, he said this 200 years ago, 250 years ago, that while we should always do good for the poor, we should not make living in poverty comfortable.
Yeah,
And I think,
exactly.
and I think today we make living in poverty too comfortable. Again,
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no incentive for people to want to go out and better
it's
themselves.
about right. And that's where we are today, that we're subsidizing irresponsibility. Um, and to the extent that we continue to do that, why should we expect people to become more responsibility if we're going to subsidize them for their irresponsibility? It makes no sense. No
Yeah.
sense
I mean,
whatsoever.
and I've said this before, bad things happen to good people and it should be used as a band-aid to get them through a rough time.
Right.
It's not become
No,
their way of life.
give them give them a hand up, not a handout. Right.
Correct.
So, all right. All right, so let's talk about how to crush the entrepreneurial spirit. So you're 50. You ever been driven down a country road and you see these farm stands where they're selling corn and whatnot out in front of the
Yeah.
family farm?
We're all
Okay.
over the place around here.
All right. So you're a 15-year-old farm boy in Wisconsin, and your family's farm is on a road that leads to a fairly large lake where people go fishing. So you get the bright idea that, hey, let me build a shed, and I'm going to set up, and like on the weekends, I'm going to sell, and I'm going to raise, you can actually raise worms. You know that, right? In
Yeah.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so months ahead of the fishing season, his family had a greenhouse. We got some nice black soil and worms. So he raised a couple of hundred worms, and he opened up this roadside stand where people on their way to the lake could stop. He put, live bait, and he had a cooler with some soda and bottled water, and he had some fish hooks and bobbers and whatnot. Really great, entrepreneurship, right? Making some
Yeah,
extra money.
absolutely. That's like the one up on a lemonade stand.
Went up on a lemonade stand, right? So he's selling bait, fish hooks, cold water, cold soda, bobbers, and anything you need to go fishing. 2 weeks after he's opened, he gets a certified letter from the county saying, you're in violation of county zoning regulations, and if you don't have the thing taken down in 7 days, we're going to fine you $200 a day.
Poor
So,
kid.
so, so, no, doesn't the county, and by the way, and it's not like this thing was going to be a 365, it's just only going to be up for like the 12 weeks of summer.
Yeah.
This is not a year-round permanent thing. And by the way, he built his shed on a couple of railroad ties so he could hook up to the tractor and drag it away for the winter so it wouldn't be out front all year. This was a temporary, summer thing, because you're not selling live bait in January, right?
Exactly.
So, so does that qualify as the stupidest thing you heard all week?
Yeah, that's that. I feel bad for that poor kid.
Yeah. And those morons in the county zoning commission, come on, guys. You should be sending this kid a commendation letter, not crushing his
Seriously.
spirit. So, all right. So let's go back to our New York City mayoral candidate, Zorhan Mamdani, lying about the size of his proposed tax increase. So let me give you a little thing. If I was selling something to you for $4, and then next week you came in, I said, and you say, I want one of those $4 whatever widgets. And I said, well, it's $6 now. How much on a percentage basis, how much of a price increase if I went from $4 to $6?
That's a 50% increase.
It's a 50% increase. So if I was taxing you at a 4% rate, and now I want to tax you at a 6% rate, how much of an increase is that?
50%.
It's a 50% increase in tax. Well, he's trying to peddle this fairy tale that if anybody in New York City makes over $1 million, he only wants to increase their taxes by 2%. Now, when he says only 2%, the current rate is 3.9%. Well, let's round it up to 4.
Okay,
And he
that's
wants
fair.
to add 2% to take it from 3.9 to 5.9. Well, let's make that 4 and 6. So he
Sure.
keeps saying, well, it's only a 2% increase. Well, if you're and by the way, and it's not just on the amount of money you make over $1 million, it's retroactive to dollar one. So it's on every dollar you make. Typically, like with federal income taxes, the more you make, the higher you pay, but you only pay that higher rate on the incremental amount over the cutoff point.
Mhm.
You with me?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely, I mean, yeah, 2% increase from 4% to 6% is a 50% increase in
Right,
tax.
but on every single dollar, not just the amount of money over $1 million,
Mhm.
it goes all the way back to dollar one. So here's this um, interviewer on this was on CNN, and she catches him, and he keeps lying, and he keeps trying to say, "No, you're wrong." Well, here he is lying about the size of his proposed tax increase. Here we go.
And I know that takes effect with people right now, the top rate of people 50,000 or more. So if you're going to be adding 2% to people at a million, I just did the math, right? Well, but that's going to be an increase of 51% of what they pay now. I'm not saying cry for them. I'm saying if they leave, you're not going to get that money. And when you increase someone's taxes by 51%, aren't a lot of people going to leave?
We're saying we're increasing it by 2%. Actually, no, Zoran, that's not at all true. And the fact that you don't know your own tax plan is insane. So, Mamdani, you proposed a 2% tax increase on anyone earning above $1 million annually. Of course, it depends if you're filing jointly, separately, or, single, but it always caps out at 3.876% right now. Before Mamdani's plan. So, as Mamdani wants to do, he wants to add 2% on the highest tax bracket. So now it would be 5.876%. We tracking? So if you file a single, every dollar over $50,000, you are now going to pay 5.876%. For those that don't understand, it's a progressive rate. So $0 to $12,000, you pay that percentage and so on and so on. So you only pay now 5.876% on every dollar over $50,000 if you make more than $1 million. But as the CNN reporter, I can't believe this guy has me defending CNN, as she said absolutely correctly, this would increase about 51% of your taxes. For example, even if you made it exactly just $1 million, technically it'd be more the more you make, but let's just say it exactly $1 million. That means $950,000, because remember, the 50,000 and before is progressive. The $950,000 you would be paying from 3.876% to the 2% increase of 5.876%. Okay, so for example, the $950,000 before Mamdani, you'd be paying $36,822. After the 2% increase that Mamdani wants to put in, you will now be paying $55,822. That would be a
So what he just said is they would be paying an extra $20,000 in city income taxes.
Yeah.
And again, that was a commentator commentating on the interview. But again, it would bump a person making $1 million, $1,000,001. Their city income tax, not the state, just the city, New York City income taxes would go from $36,000 a year to $55,000 a year. And
That's
it's a so and what's going to
significant.
happen? I mean, if you needed more incentive to leave the city of New York, isn't that enough for you?
Absolutely.
I mean, if somebody says, "Hey, you're going to take another $20,000 a year of my money for New York City taxes on top of my federal taxes, on top of my New York State taxes," why the hell? I wouldn't stay in New York City, and I think a lot of people are going to move. So
Yeah, absolutely. And people since the pandemic, people have been fleeing the city and it's just getting
yeah,
worse.
getting worse. And again, did you hear? And she said, "Well, that's a 51% increase," and he came back and said, "No, it's just a 2% increase. No, it's 2%.
Clearly doesn't know how to do math. A percentage
It's
change.
2%, yeah, it's 2 percentage points, but it's a 51% increase.
Yes.
So he's defending his lie anyway. And he'll be peddling that
And
lie.
this is not the person, somebody who can't do that basic math isn't the person you want controlling your
No.
money.
And by the way, and even if he knows it's a lie, I guarantee you 90% of the people in New York City don't will not understand. They'll believe that it's only a tiny little 2%. They won't understand
Yeah.
that he's proposing increasing taxes by
Mhm.
51% on people. And by the way, a lot of people in New York, by the way, and this is household, it's not individuals. So, if you're a working couple in New York City and you're Wall Street, it's there's like 10,000 people make over $1 million in New York City. Um, it's very, very expensive.
And that sounds like a lot of money too, but when you consider the cost of living in New York City is outrageous.
Right. And the government is already taking half. If you make $1 million, the government between the federal, city, and state, they're already taking half.
Mhm.
So, um, you know what it costs to park it? If you want to, you know what it costs to park it to get a monthly parking spot in New York City?
Oh, it's probably several $100s.
Try several $1,000s a
Wow.
month.
Wow.
It's like $2,600 a month if you want to have keep a car in New York City. That's more than most people pay for rent. $2,600 just to get a single parking spot for your
I
car.
know. So, living, being in New Jersey, having a monthly parking permit in New Jersey, where as a commuter, it's about $20 a day.
Hmm.
So there's 20 working days in a month. So that's right there is $400, and that doesn't count your ferry ride back
Right.
across the river.
It's
That's
just,
just to park
yeah,
your car, and that's in Jersey.
right. That's why there's more than 10,000 people in New York make more than $1 million a year. And they're
And
not,
the tolls to cross the bridge.
yeah, and the tolls across, and trust me, so you're not fabulously wealthy if you're making $1 million a year in New York
Yeah,
City.
unfortunately not.
Right. All right, so let's talk about 1,800 teenagers with loaded guns. So every year up in Michigan, they have the National Junior Trap Shooting Competition. So 1,800 teenagers, again, this started last week. They showed up for 5 days. Between them, they shot more than 50,000 rounds of ammunition, and they all had at least one gun. So 1,800 teenagers, 5 days, 50,000 rounds of ammunition. You want to hear the casualty statistics?
I'm going to take a guess and say 0.
Zero people wounded, zero people killed. So what's the takeaway from that?
Responsible adults.
And the takeaway, the problem is not the guns.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is not the guns.
And I'll say, even though technically adults, they're still teenagers, so responsible teenagers.
Yeah, they're responsible, and it is not the gun. The gun is not evil. The gun is not the problem. It's the people who are handling the guns. And
Mm-hmm.
when you get the wrong people who are remember we talked about irresponsibility. So this just goes to show you can have 1,800 teenagers who have been trained and are responsible, and they don't have violent tendencies. So, folks, it's not the guns, it's the people. All
Mm-hmm.
right. You ever heard of a Biden era program called CNHV immigration?
I don't believe I have.
Well, the CNHV stands for Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela. And that was a program the Biden administration set up to allow people from those countries that were being suffering from poverty and violence and whatnot to immigrate to the U.S. and to get work permits, but they had to have a sponsor. Okay. And again, CNHV stood for Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela. Well, here's Congressman Andy Biggs, and this is when Biden was still president, asking one of his officials in charge of that program some questions about the program and about the people that were sponsoring the program. And each individual had to have a sponsor. So, like maybe another family member or relative in the States. So here he is asking this woman who was in charge of the program about the sponsorship.
Sir, so that's why I gave a statement. Do you agree that the same social security number was used on at least 20 different CHNV supporter applications?
So first, let me start by saying.
So these are yes, no questions. So yes or no?
I just want to make clear that the role that USCIS plays is on the supporters.
And I'm asking about supporter applications.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question? Then I heard it as the parolee.
No, the same social security number was used on at least 20 different CHNV supporter applications. That's the question I asked.
Sorry.
You're aware of that?
Yes, I am very aware of.
That happened at least 3,200 times.
I don't.
So let me do the math for you. So he's saying that on more than 3,200 times, they found the same sponsor social security number on more than 20 sponsor applications. How many people, and you're supposed to take these people in, you're supposed to feed them, house them. So if you're a sponsor, can you take 20 people into your house?
In theory, yes.
And there was more than 20, and they had 32, they had 3,200 different instances where a single sponsor allegedly was sponsoring 20 or more people. Does that sound a little bit fishy to you?
Oh, absolutely. In theory, could you have 20 people in your house? Yeah, but realistically, probably not.
Yeah, and maybe there's, maybe maybe you've got a farm or something, you want some workers, but So let me continue playing. So about 20 times 3,200, the last time I looked would be like 60,000, correct?
Yeah, 6,400. Yeah. Or no, yeah, yeah,
That's according to
6,400.
DHS's report.
Okay, I don't.
You don't dispute DHS's report? do you?
No, I absolutely will not.
And also, the same phone number was used on at least 20 different supporter applications, at least 3,300 times. That's according to the report. Do you agree that that report's accurate?
I don't have that report in front of me, but
I'm reading
I
from
won't
it.
dispute, yes, but I don't have it in front of me and I would.
So you would dispute it?
No, I'm not disputing what I am.
So you would deflect and ramble around. You don't disagree with that number. You don't think I'm deliberately cherry picking number and just saying, oh, I'm just throwing this stuff out. I'm giving you the numbers from the report. Do you trust me on that? Do you at least trust me that far?
Yes,
Okay, so then you agree with that number. The same email address was used on at least 20 different supporter applications, nearly 2,000 times. You agree with that?
Sir, if there is a situation where we have
Okay, here.
concerns of fraud and integrity,
Look,
we take action
I'm
at CIS, and that is exactly what we have done with regard to CHNV, where we.
okay, so let's clarify here. So I'm laying foundation. And you don't really want to admit that there's this much rampant fraud here. You're trying to tell me that when you find fraud, we cure it. And yet nearly 2,000 times you had the same email address used on 20 different support.
All right. So you think there's a little bit of fraud going on there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And by the way, you don't even know that those people, and here's another, so maybe some of those people were getting paid to sponsor people, or maybe somebody had stolen their identities and were using stolen identities and burner phone numbers to sponsor these people, because clearly this wasn't legitimate. So, and it didn't happen just once. It happened over 3,000 times, and they didn't pick up on it. I mean, you would think, you would think that you would notice the same phone number, same email address, same social security number over and over and over, but that's the extent of the fraud that was taking place there.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, it's a shame that these things, I think they know that they're going to slip through the cracks because there's no checks and balances.
Well, yeah, there hasn't been. All right, let's move on to whether or not young African Americans should be required to learn and become proficient in the English language. Let's talk about dialects. Now, you've heard people from Jamaica, they speak English, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they speak English with a Jamaican accent, like, hey, man, right? You can tell somebody from Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to get a job in any sort of any job that has contact with customers, and unless you work in a warehouse, putting stuff on trucks, I mean, I don't know what percentage of the jobs in this country require you to interact with members of the public and even coworkers. But having good English speaking and writing skills is important for what? Half the jobs in this country, at least?
I'd say more than that. Way
Yeah,
more.
yeah. If you're going to be a clerk in Walmart, you're going to work a cash register.
Yeah, even like you said, even like a warehouse, a dock loader. I mean, you got to talk to your coworkers, and
Right. Well, here's John Stossel interviewing a professor, and he's saying, this is what's being promoted, that we should lower the standards for Black students when it comes to grading them on their English language skills. Here we go.
Well, I thought something was wrong for a while. I didn't realize how wrong it was until 2019.
And by the way, and this gentleman he's a Black teacher, so this is not a white guy. This is a Black teacher commenting on why he thought this is so wrong.
When a keynote address at the primary conference for my field, college composition and communication,
melt to the steel bars of racism and white language supremacy.
The keynote argued that, among other things, teaching standard English to students of color, particularly Black students, is inherently racist.
If you use a single standard to grade your students' languaging, you engage in racism.
It's racist to teach Black kids standard English. That perpetuates white supremacy.
Yes, that's the idea. And even the presence of white professors is a problem. That does some kind of psychic harm to students of color. So,
And by the way, and they're talking about college students, not necessarily high school. They're inclusive, but this is at the college level.
I heard that, thought it was a bit misguided, and said so on a listserv in my field, the Writing Program Administrators listserv. I put it out there basically in a long form way, asking, is this really a good idea? Is this the best way to go about this? And what ensued was hardly a conversation. It was more like a social media mobbing session.
Instead of a discussion, people called you racist. Do you enjoy using Western modes of argument to invalidate people of color? Check your privilege.
Yeah. Oh, that old chestnut. Check your privilege. Yeah, that happened. And it happened because what they saw in me was a bigger threat than anything they've seen before. A Black person saying it's okay to teach Black students standardized English.
Why is that a threat?
It's a threat because when a white person does it, oh, of course you don't understand this. But when I do it, it's a more difficult challenge, right? So they have to, pull out all the stops.
In my full interview with former diversity officer Eric Smith, he gives more insight about what turned him against DEI training. You can watch at johnstossel.com.
So what do you think about this whole concept that we should lower the standards and
No, we absolutely should not. I mean, when you talk about this, just the United States, and even, other countries that speak English as their primary language, we have a different accent, and we also do use different words to describe different things, even from across the state. Pot versus soda, for example, buggy
Sure.
versus cart. But the bottom line is we can all communicate with each other effectively. So no, we shouldn't be lowering the standards.
Yeah, and again, and you look at former athletes that are now, sports commentators. Their language skills are first rate.
Absolutely. They have to be yeah. I mean, look at all those pro athletes turned commentator. They are professional journalists, essentially.
Do you think they would have gotten a job as a TV sports commentator if their language skills sucked?
Not. Absolutely not.
So, and by the way, you happen to know, I think you've met Shaquan Barkley from
Saquon. Yeah, I do.
Shaquan Barkley.
Saquon.
Yeah, he's got great speaking skills. Right, and so yeah, I think they're doing.
Because he has a first-class education.
First-class education, and so I think this concept that we shouldn't try to have raise the vocabulary and language of Black students in college up to everybody else's is really a disservice, and it's an idea that I think needs to be smothered in its crib. That's where I'm coming from on that.
Yeah, accents aside and different words aside, yeah, absolutely not.
All right. How much time we got left?
Oh, you got like 6 minutes.
All right, good. So let's talk about AI. And here's a study. But people have no idea how massive these AI models are. When you pose a question to an AI model, remember we talked about ChatGPT?
Yeah.
These things will go through AI farms. It's not just a computer. It is a warehouse full of computers, all trying to find the answer to your question. So if you ask a question, what's the best meatball recipe? Your question might get run through 500 servers to come up with the answer to that. That's how AI works. All right. So those 500 computers collectively are like cells in a single brain. So any question you ask gets distributed to all 500 servers, or maybe 5,000 servers. Well, here's a little study that's showing how much power these things are going to take. AI models are frequently trained to remain relevant, which means they have to update themselves literally twice a day. Software requires regular updates, and new data centers need large cooling systems to keep everything running, because those servers, by the way, throw off tremendous amounts of heat. Allen says the largest AI algorithms require between 1 and 5 gigawatts of electricity to operate. Now, if you don't know how big a gigawatt, the Hoover Dam, you've been to the Hoover Dam in Las Vegas?
Yeah, several times.
You know how much power the Hoover Dam puts out?
I don't, but it's a lot.
It's 1 gigawatt. And they're saying The smallest AI server reform will require at least 1 gigawatt of electricity, and the larger one's 5 gigawatts. So can imagine
I'm
five.
trying to think of the Back to the Future scene with how many gigawatts are in a lightning of energy or in a lightning strike.
Well, can you imagine a server farm that would require the electricity that you would have to get from 5 Hoover dams just to
That
power a one data center? So, and of course, our grid and infrastructure, that's why Microsoft wants to put its server farm literally right next to the computer, because when you're moving that much electricity, you need some huge transmission lines too to get it there. That's why Microsoft wants to put its server farm on 3 Mile Island. So,
And to give a different perspective on that Hoover Dam too, the answer to my own personal question was 1.2 gigawatts of a lightning strike to run the DeLorean.
okay. All right. And that was only for like 2 seconds, right? That was
Yeah,
for 2
for
seconds.
literally a lightning strike of energy to power the DeLorean and Back to the Future is 1.2 gigawatts.
Right, for a second. For a second.
Yeah,
Right.
for
That's how long a
1 second.
lightning strike is. All right. So that was our. So anyway, so it's going to be a whole new strain on our electric grid, and I think you're going to see. I think we talked a couple of weeks ago about modular nuclear reactors.
Yeah,
So I think
to
you're going to
power
see.
some neighborhoods too.
I think you're going to
Yeah,
see.
you had talked about 3 Mile Island though that's actually down in Harrisburg, in the Harrisburg suburbs, which is
Right.
not it's about halfway between here and you.
Right, and not too far from Allentown, where our taxpayer relief shot comes from.
Yep.
And so I'm not going to play the lead in, folks. Taxpayer relief shots is when a good guy or a good woman with a gun shoots and kills the thugs, saving the taxpayers from the cost of having to give them a trial and put them to jail for 10 years at 80,000 a year. So here's a story out of Allentown where a road rager, listen, but he runs this little car off the road, and after he runs this car off the road, gets out of the car with a baseball bat, and here's what happens.
Right now, the details on the investigation into a deadly road rage incident in Allentown. Police say the driver of an Audi went after the driver of a Prius with a metal baseball bat. And that's when they say the driver of the Prius pulled out a gun and then shot the other driver. Action News reporter Walter Perez is live from Allentown tonight with more on what happened. Walter.
Well, Rick will give you right now a live look at the memorial set up in honor of the man who was killed. But tonight, investigators tell Action News the person who died appears to have been the aggressor in this case.
So, by the way, I find it odd that they've set up one of these memorials with all the candles and the flowers around the light pole for the guy who was the bad guy. They've set up a memorial.
That's interesting, yeah.
Officials in Lehigh County have identified the person killed as 35-year-old Tamir Johnson of Whitehall Township. Allentown Mayor Matt Turk says there's only one way to describe this case.
It's senseless. It's a product of people kind of losing their cool and having, in my estimation, too easy access to guns.
Investigators are referring to this case as a road rage incident that unfolded very early Sunday morning on the 400 block of West Hamilton Street in Allentown. Investigators say they believe that Johnson, who was driving an Audi, overtook another driver behind the wheel of a Prius. Johnson then allegedly forced the Prius to the curb, got out of his vehicle carrying a baseball bat.
Now, by the way, you're in the Prius. He's forced your car to the shoulder of the road with his car. He's cut you off, and now he's coming at you with a baseball bat. Do you feel that you're in a fear of death or serious?
Yeah, I do feel. I fear for my life if somebody's coming at me with a baseball bat.
After forcing your car off to the shoulder of the road, right?
Yes.
And reportedly struck the driver's side door of the Prius with that bat. That's when the driver of the Prius pulled out a handgun and fired one shot, striking Johnson in the torso. The driver of the Prius then drove about 2 blocks away, pulled over, and called police. Johnson was pronounced dead a short time later. Mayor Turk sums up what happened like this.
A motorist was attacked by another motorist and acted in self-defense, and the fired a single shot, which resulted in the death of the aggressor.
We spoke with people here in Allentown to get their opinions about this case.
You shouldn't shoot people. Pretty much, you just should not shoot people.
He didn't shoot multiple times. He only shot once and drove off, and then pulled safely and called the cops. So he did everything correct, in my opinion.
Now, the driver of the Prius does have a license to carry. That person has not been identified publicly by investigators because, as of tonight, no charges have been filed. Reporting live from Allentown, Walter Perez, Channel 6, Action News.
So any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's he was defending himself. He felt threatened, and we talk about, guns kill people. No, it's the people like that hold the guns.
Right.
So the same could be true of the baseball. Baseball bats are not
Right. And by the way,
dangerous, but it's the person holding the bat is the danger.
And you're assuming the person driving the Prius was a man. It could have been a woman, by the way.
True.
So, I look at that kind of, the old saying, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think the guy with the baseball bat was playing a stupid game and he won a stupid prize. So, all right. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Nope.
All right. Well, folks, I wanted to thank everybody who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things that I find of interest and importance. And I trust that, by the way, that you didn't hear about a single thing I talked about today on the news. Did you hear anything I talked about on the news?
Not, no.
All right. Well, I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, give producer Susan a couple of days. You'll be able to find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerziejoe.com. Just remember that Jerzee spelled J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee, jerziejoe.com with no space. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, suggested show topic, or you want to get on my distribution list for the podcast, you can do that by just sending me an email to simply joe@jerziejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and two E's. And with that, producer Susan, if you've got nothing else to add, you want to sign off and talk to you next week?
Stay cool. It's not just hot out there, it's humid out there.
All right. Well, you take care and I'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.